The heavy oak door creaked open as Captain Peter Xavier stepped into his darkened home. The familiar scent of lemon polish now tainted with something else. Something wrong. 8 months in Afghanistan had sharpened his instincts, and right then every nerve in his body screamed that something was terribly amiss. The house stood silent, too silent for a Saturday morning when his family should be bustling about. "Linda, Melissa," his deep voice echoed through the empty hallway. Yet there was no response except the hollow tick of the grandfather clock his late wife Sarah had loved so much. Then, almost imperceptibly, a whimper reached his combat-trained ears coming from the kitchen. Moving swiftly with his heart pounding against his ribs, Peter reached the kitchen door. It was locked. What kind of house locks its kitchen door? His hands trembled as he found his key ring. One twist, and the truth he was about to discover would shatter everything he believed about family, trust, and the people we leave behind. "Daddy, come." A faint voice emerged from inside. "Is it really you?" The voice of his 15-year-old daughter, Melissa, sounded different, broken, afraid. As the door swung open, the sight before him stopped his heart. His precious daughter, his only connection to Sarah, was rising from a thin mattress on the cold kitchen floor, her eyes filled with tears and fear. This wasn't the homecoming he had imagined. This was the beginning of a nightmare that would unravel everything he thought he knew about the family he had left behind. Captain Peter Xavier wasn't born into wealth, but he was rich in principles. At 42, his weathered face told the story of a man who had served his country proudly for 2 decades, earning decorations that hung modestly in his home office. Yet, the most precious medal he'd ever received was the small heart-shaped locket his late wife Sarah had given him before she passed away during Melissa's birth 15 years ago. For 5 years, Peter raised Melissa alone, balancing military duties with bedtime stories and deployment preparations. With dance recitals and quiet moments when he brushed her hair just as Sarah had shown him, and the proud afternoons watching her excel at science fairs. Their bond grew unshakable. Melissa inherited her mother's golden hair and determination, but her eyes were all Peter's deep blue pools that seemed to carry wisdom beyond her years. Then Linda Marshall entered their lives, a divorced mother of 2 boys who seemed to understand the delicate balance of grief and hope that defined the Xavier household. Her sons, Jay and Kyle, appear to be well-adjusted teenagers despite their own father's abandonment. Jay, now 17, showed a protective instinct toward his younger siblings, while 14-year-old Kyle shared Melissa's passion for academics. The marriage, which had begun 10 years ago, had felt like a second chance at happiness for everyone. Yet Linda's transformation, from the warm, understanding woman who'd won Peter's heart to the person who would betray his trust so profoundly, remained a mystery that would haunt him. She had been a school counselor known for her empathy and insight into troubled teens, and her own boys had thrived under her care. This made the current situation even more bewildering. The family photos lining the hallway told a story of holiday gatherings, shared laughter, and what appeared to be genuine love, a carefully constructed facade that would soon crumble before his latest deployment. Peter had believed he'd built something beautiful from the ashes of his grief, never suspecting that his absence would trigger a chain of events testing not only his family's bonds, but also the very meaning of loyalty, trust, and forgiveness. The kitchen's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across what had become Melissa's makeshift bedroom. Captain Peter Xavier stood frozen, his military training failing him in the face of this domestic horror. A thin mattress lay in the corner, surrounded by carefully arranged school books and a small, battery-operated reading lamp. The sight of his daughter's neatly folded clothes, stacked in plastic bins, turned his stomach. She had been living like this for months, adapting to circumstances no child should ever face. Peter's voice cracked as he knelt beside Melissa, who was now clutching his uniform jacket as if it might make her disappear. The question hung heavy in the air, mingling with the lingering scent of microwave dinners and cleaning supplies. Since March, Melissa whispered her words barely audible. When you stopped writing, she pulled away slightly, reaching under her mattress to retrieve a bundle of envelopes tied with a faded blue ribbon. Linda said you weren't writing anymore because you'd found a new family overseas, but I knew you wouldn't do that, Daddy. Peter's hands trembled as he examined the unopened letters, each bearing his distinctive handwriting. Every week he had written to his daughter, sharing stories of his deployment, asking about her studies, and reminding her of his love. The postmarks told their own story. Linda had systematically intercepted every letter for the past 6 months. The reality of the situation began to crystallize. This wasn't a simple case of family discord or stepdaughter tension. This was calculated cruelty, a methodical dismantling of a child's world. The kitchen calendar on the wall caught his eye, dates marked with small red X's. Upon closer inspection, he realized they corresponded with Linda's weekend trips with the boys, leaving Melissa locked away like some dark family secret. She said it was temporary. Melissa continued, her voice, stronger now in her father's presence, just until Kyle's room was renovated. But then weeks passed. She gestured to the makeshift living space she'd created. I try to make it work, Daddy. I even started learning to cook since I was here anyway. A weak smile crossed her face, a flicker of attempted bravery that broke Peter's heart. Just then, the sound of footsteps on the front porch interrupted their reunion. Peter's military instincts kicked in as he moved toward the kitchen door, positioning himself between it and his daughter. Instead of Linda's key in the lock, there came a gentle knock and a soft, concerned voice. "Melissa, it's Karen. I brought you some lunch, honey." Karen Thompson stood at the kitchen door with a covered casserole dish in her trembling hands. She was everything Linda wasn't. Warm, genuine, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. For 6 months, she had been Melissa's secret guardian, a lifeline in an increasingly isolated world. "I'm Karen Thompson," she said, meeting Peter's questioning gaze. "I moved in next door about 7 months ago." Her voice carried the soft lilt of Georgia's countryside, steady but cautious. "I've been watching over Melissa when I could." Peter unlocked the door, noticing how Karen's eyes immediately went to Melissa, checking for signs of distress, a practiced gesture that spoke volumes about their established routine. The aroma of homemade chicken pot pie filled the kitchen, and Melissa's face brightened slightly. "I teach English at the high school," Melissa explained as she straightened her wrinkled clothes, adding that she'd figured something was wrong when she saw Karen studying by flashlight through the kitchen window late one night. Karen set the casserole down, her hands clasping and unclasping nervously. "I tried reporting it. Captain Xavier actually tried reporting it 3 times, but Linda, she's well connected with the school board and respected in the community. She always had explanations for everything. They said Melissa was troubled, making up stories for attention after her mother's death." Karen's voice caught as she continued, revealing that she believed the school had favored Linda over a new teacher in town. The full weight of Karen's involvement began to unfold. She had done more than provide meals. She had slipped textbooks through the window, graded Melissa's homework, and most importantly, given her hope through whispered conversations and notes passed under the kitchen door. She had kept Melissa's spirit from breaking entirely. "I started bringing extra food when I realized the boys were gone," Karen explained. "Every weekend, Linda would leave sandwiches, but a growing teenager needs more than that. We developed a system. 3 taps on the window meant food. 2 meant Linda was coming. And 1, she paused, looking at Melissa, meant you're not alone." Peter watched as his daughter moved naturally to stand beside Karen, their bond evident in the gentle way the teacher's hand came to rest on Melissa's shoulder. In his absence, this stranger had become his daughter's protector, even risking her career and reputation in a town where Linda's influence ran deep. "There's more you need to know, Captain," Karen said softly, reaching into her bag. "About Jay and Kyle, things aren't what they seem." With hesitation, she withdrew a folded piece of paper from her bag before handing it to Peter. It was a handwritten note in distinctly teenage handwriting. "Ms. Thompson," Mom took Melissa's phone again. "Can you make sure she gets my old calculus notes? Don't tell her they're from me." This wasn't the only note, Karen explained. More notes followed. Jay had been leaving his lunch money in Melissa's locker since March, and Kyle had been slipping his desserts under the kitchen door when Linda wasn't looking. "They're trapped in their own way," Karen said gently. "Linda said they wanted me gone, that they complained about sharing space with me." Peter spread the notes across the kitchen counter, each one telling a fragment of a larger, more disturbing story. There were notes from Jay asking Karen to check on Melissa during storms because she was always afraid of thunder, and messages from Kyle sharing answers to homework assignments through Karen, who maintained their unofficial study partnership despite their forced separation. "Your sons have been trying to protect her," Karen said softly to Peter. "But, Linda, she's a master of manipulation. She tells Jay that one wrong move could send him back to his father, and she reminds Kyle that she's the only one who's ever supported his academic dreams." It was clear that Linda had created an environment of fear and dependency. One particularly revealing note caught Peter's attention. "Ms. T, Mom's taking us to Florida this weekend for my birthday, but it's not until November. Something's wrong. Please watch Melissa, Kyle." The pieces were falling into place. Linda hadn't just isolated Melissa. She had orchestrated a complex web of emotional manipulation, playing her children against each other while maintaining a perfect facade for the outside world. Linda's weekend trips, the locked doors, the intercepted letters, all were part of a calculated strategy to break the bonds between siblings and destroy any evidence of her actions. Peter's voice was hoarse as he asked, "Where are they now?" "Still in Florida," Melissa answered. "Linda said they're touring colleges, but Kyle's only 14. Karen stepped forward, her teacher instinct for protection evident. "Captain, Linda's schedule is to return tomorrow. Whatever you're planning, the children, all 3 of them, need to be protected. They've been fighting this battle alone for too long." A kitchen clock ticked loudly in the silence that followed, marking time in a house where time had stood still for months. Peter Xavier, who had faced enemy fire without flinching, now felt a different kind of fear. This wasn't a battlefield with clear enemies and allies. It was his home, and somewhere between his deployment and his return, it had become a psychological war zone with his children caught in the crossfire. By late afternoon, the Xavier home had become an investigation site, not the kind Captain Peter Xavier was accustomed to from his military career. The dining room table, once the center of family meals, now displayed a timeline of evidence that painted a disturbing picture of systematic abuse. With Karen's help, Peter methodically sorted through 8 months of family records. Bank statements revealed unexplained withdrawals from the children's college funds, money Linda had access to during his deployment. School records showed a stark contrast. While Kyle and Jay maintained their privileged positions in advanced placement courses, Melissa's grades had plummeted, accompanied by numerous unexplained absences that Linda had authorized with practiced ease. The school trusted her implicitly, as Karen explained while spreading out Melissa's attendance records. It became clear that no one would question a guidance counselor about her own family. A finger traced a pattern of absences that coincided perfectly with Linda's weekend trips. She told the administration that Melissa was visiting colleges or attending family events. No one ever thought to verify. The most damning evidence came from Melissa's personal diary, discovered hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the kitchen. The entries chronicled a gradual descent into isolation, beginning with subtle changes in Linda's behavior. One entry read, February 15th. Linda says the boys need more space for their studies. She suggested I move into the guest room temporarily. Dad would want me to be cooperative. Another entry detailed, March 3rd. The guest room furniture is gone. Linda says there was a mix-up with the donation center. Melissa continued, I'm sleeping in the kitchen now. She promises it's just for a week. And then, March 17th, my phone disappeared today. Linda says I must have lost it at school, but I saw it on her desk. When I mentioned it, she reminded me how expensive it was for Dad to keep me in private school. Peter's hands trembled as he read entry after entry, each page revealing how his daughter's world had contracted while Linda's control expanded. One particular entry, dated just 2 weeks ago, stood out. Jay sneaked me Mom's old locket today. He said he found it in Linda's drawer with Dad's letters. Linda told me Mom never left anything for me. I knew she was lying. Mom did love me. I just have to hold on until Dad comes home. He always keeps his promises. The locket in question now lay on the table, a small, heart-shaped piece that had belonged to Sarah, Peter's late wife. He had searched for it after Sarah's death, intending to give it to Melissa when she was older, but Linda had claimed it must have been lost in their last move. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the damning evidence of Linda's betrayal, Karen's sharp intake of breath startled Peter. She held up a stack of papers found in Linda's home office. "Captain Xavier," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "These are transfer papers. Linda's been planning to move the boys to a private school in Florida. And there's something else." She pulled out a document bearing an official letterhead. Paperwork to relinquish custody of Melissa to the state, citing unmanageable behavioral issues, and it was dated for next month. The revelation hung in the air like a physical presence. This wasn't just about isolation or emotional abuse. Linda had been systematically preparing to dismantle the entire family piece by piece, all while maintaining her reputation as a devoted mother and respected community member. As evening descended on the Xavier home, Karen's methodical search through Linda's office revealed a hidden compartment in the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. Inside lay a leather-bound journal and a stack of medical records that would shed light on the darkness that had consumed their family. These records dated back 15 years, Karen said, her professional demeanor giving way to growing concern as she examined the documents. Linda had been hospitalized for severe depression after her first husband abandoned her and the boys, and she underwent extensive therapy. Yet, she had stopped taking her medication shortly after Peter's deployment. Captain Peter leaned forward, examining the journal entries that chronicled Linda's gradual descent. The handwriting had evolved from neat, measured strokes to increasingly erratic scrolls. April 12th. Peter's letters to Melissa arrive every week like clockwork. He never wrote to the boys this much during his previous deployments. Jay asked about it today. I saw the hurt in his eyes, the same hurt I saw when their father left. Another entry read, May 3rd. Found Melissa looking at old photos of Sarah today. Peter keeps them everywhere. Perfect, Sarah, beautiful, Sarah, dead. Sarah who still has more presence in this house than I do. Even my own sons prefer her daughter to me now. June 15th. The medication makes everything foggy. How can I protect my boys if I can't think clearly? Peter's unit reported casualties today. What if he doesn't come back? I won't let them take my sons from me again. Not like before. The journal revealed a woman unraveling, her grip on reality distorted by untreated mental illness and deep-seated abandonment issues. Linda had created elaborate conspiracies in her mind, convincing herself that Melissa was somehow turning her sons against her, that Peter's deployment was actually abandonment in disguise. A separate folder contained emails between Linda and her ex-husband, revealing yet another layer of manipulation. She had been telling the boys that their father wanted nothing to do with them, while simultaneously blocking his attempts to maintain contact. The same pattern she would later repeat with Peter's letters to Melissa. Look at this, Karen said softly, holding up a recent bank statement showing large withdrawals every month sent to an address in Florida. She cross-referenced it with property records on her laptop. It's a beachfront condo purchased 3 months ago. She's been planning this for a while, systematically moving money and establishing a new life without Melissa. Peter's military training had taught him to analyze threats, yet nothing had prepared him for this level of calculated domestic warfare. Linda hadn't just been isolating Melissa. She had been systematically erasing all traces of Sarah and Peter from their lives, creating a narrative of abandonment that would justify her actions to her own children. An alert then chimed on Karen's phone. A text message from someone named Jay. Mom's talking about leaving early. Something about bad weather coming. Please tell Miss Thompson to check on Melissa. The countdown had begun. Linda was returning ahead of schedule, unaware that her carefully constructed world was about to collapse. Peter had less than 24 hours to prepare for a confrontation that would either save his family or shatter it completely. As night fell over the Xavier residence, Captain Peter transformed his living room into a command center, drawing on years of military strategic planning. Time was of the essence. With Linda's premature return looming, Karen remained by his side, her educational expertise proving invaluable in documenting the case. "I've contacted Judge William Harrison," Peter said as he reviewed his notes. "He's an old family friend and agreed to issue an emergency custody order for all 3 children effective immediately." Glancing at the clock, he noted that it was 9:47 p.m. "The paperwork will be ready by morning," he added. Karen organized the evidence methodically: financial records, intercepted letters, medical documents, and, most crucially, Linda's own journal entries. Each piece carefully photographed and digitally backed up. "The school board will need to be notified," she said. "Linda's position as a counselor gives her access to vulnerable students. They'll want to conduct their own investigation." Then a text message illuminated Karen's phone with another update from Jay. "Mom's booked morning flights. ETA 10 a.m. tomorrow. Kyle's pretending to be sick to slow her down. I overheard her on the phone with someone named Richard about property closings." Peter's jaw tightened at the mention of Richard Thompson, Linda's attorney, whose signature appeared on both the custody relinquishment papers and the Florida property documents. Another piece of her elaborate escape plan. "Melissa needs to be moved tonight," Peter decided firmly but gently. "Karen, would you be willing to take her? Your house is within the school district, and the custody order will cover her placement temporarily with a licensed teacher." Melissa, who had been silently sorting through her mother's old photographs at the dining room table, looked up. "What about Jay and Kyle? They tried to help me, Dad. We can't leave them with her." Peter knelt beside his daughter, struck by her concern for her stepbrothers despite everything she'd endured. "The custody order covers all 3 of you, sweetheart. When Linda arrives tomorrow, the boys will come directly here. Judge Harrison has already arranged for a family counselor to be present." Karen added softly, "I've spoken with my sister Beth, a trauma counselor in Denver. She's flying in tomorrow to help with the transition. The children will need professional support to process everything." As midnight approached, they executed the plan with military precision. Melissa's few belongings were carefully packed and transferred to Karen's house, while Peter documented the condition of the kitchen one final time, photographing the makeshift bedroom that would serve as damning evidence of Linda's abuse. Before leaving, Melissa paused in the kitchen doorway, clutching her mother's locket. "Dad," her voice wavered with a promise, "you won't let her separate us again. Jay and Kyle, they're my brothers now, no matter what Linda says." Peter embraced his daughter, recognizing in her words the same strength that had once defined her mother. "I promise, sweetheart. Tomorrow we start rebuilding our family, all of us together." As he watched Melissa walk safely to Karen's house next door, Peter Xavier steeled himself for the confrontation to come. Tomorrow would require more than military strategy or legal maneuvering. It would demand the delicate balance of justice and mercy, the wisdom to protect his children while acknowledging Linda's illness, and the strength to rebuild what had been broken. The following morning dawned with an almost surreal quietness over the Xavier residence. At precisely 9:47 a.m., surveillance footage from Tampa International Airport confirmed what Peter already knew. Linda was on her way home, accompanied by Jay and Kyle, blissfully unaware that her carefully constructed facade was about to shatter. Peter sat in his study, surrounded by the evidence of Linda's deception, when the first text from Jay arrived. "Mom's acting strange. Keeps checking her phone and making calls." Minutes later, another message read, "She knows something's wrong," adding that the house alarm had been triggered last night through the window. Through the study window, Peter could see Karen in her kitchen preparing breakfast for Melissa, his daughter, who for the first time in months appeared to be sleeping peacefully, curled up on a proper bed and surrounded by the warmth of genuine care. The contrast between the two households could not have been starker. At 10:23 a.m., the sound of tires on gravel announced Linda's arrival. Peter watched through the study window as she emerged from her luxury SUV, her designer outfit and perfectly coiffed hair a testament to her obsession with appearances. Jay and Kyle followed, their bodies tense and eyes immediately scanning the windows, a learned behavior that spoke volumes about their home life. "Boys, take the bags inside," Peter observed, noting Linda's forced cheerfulness barely masking an undercurrent of tension. We'll discuss the school transfer over lunch. Peter also observed the subtle resistance in his stepson's behavior. The slower pace, the exchanged glances, the way Jay positioned himself protectively between his younger brother and their mother. These were not the actions of troubled teens, but of survivors who had learned to navigate their mother's unpredictable moods. The front door opened, and Linda's manufactured smile froze as she stepped into the foyer. Peter had intentionally left Melissa's school photos on the wall, but also added something new. Printed copies of Linda's journal entries, medical records, and bank statements, methodically arranged like a grotesque family album. Linda's voice wavered as she attempted to explain herself. I can explain everything. The boys needed more space, and Melissa, she's been so difficult since you left. Peter's voice cut through her excuses like a blade. The boys know everything. Linda, about the letters you intercepted, about the money you've been moving to Florida. He then turned to Jay and Kyle. Your bags are already packed. Karen's waiting next door. You'll be staying there with your sister while we sort this out. Linda's transformation was instantaneous. The polished facade crumbled, revealing something raw and desperate beneath. My sons are not going anywhere with that woman, she spat. She's poisoned all of you against me, just like Sarah did, turning my own children. Mom, Jay's voice was steady with years of protected anger finally surfacing. You have no right. I slept on a kitchen floor for 6 months, and we watched you lock her in, lie to Dad, and intercept our letters. Kyle, his voice breaking from the pain of endless nights, added, I cried myself to sleep every night hearing you through the wall. The boys moved toward the door, but Linda's next words stopped them cold. If you leave now, you'll end up just like your father, alone, worthless, begging to see children who don't want you anymore inside Karen's home. Melissa stood at the window, watching the confrontation unfold across the lawn, her fingers instinctively clutching her mother's locket. At that moment, Beth, Karen's sister, gently placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. Your brothers are coming, Beth said softly, her professional demeanor tempered with genuine warmth as a trauma counselor who recognized the complex layers of family dynamics unfolding before them. They're choosing to break the cycle, Melissa. That takes tremendous courage. Through the window, they watched as Jay and Kyle walked steadily toward Karen's house, their steps growing more confident with each yard of distance between themselves and their mother. Linda's voice carried across the morning air, a desperate symphony of threats and pleading that diminished as the boys approached. Inside Karen's living room, the transformation was immediate. Kyle, the younger brother who had maintained perfect grades despite the turmoil at home, finally allowed his carefully constructed facade to crumble as he rushed to Melissa, enveloping her in a fierce hug. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice breaking. We should have done more, should have told someone sooner. Every night, I could hear you through the wall. I even played classical music, hoping it would help you sleep. Jay, remaining by the door with his tall frame rigid with tension at 17, had become the family's unofficial protector, a role that had aged him beyond his years. She was planning this for months, he revealed, pulling out a folder from his backpack that contained details of the Florida school transfers and the new house. Everything she would tell Dad, that Melissa had run away because she couldn't handle being a troubled teen anymore. Beth moved quietly through the room, her trained eye assessing each child's emotional state. You've all been carrying this burden alone for too long, she observed. But look at you now, together, supporting each other. That's not what broken people do. That's what survivors do. The sound of breaking glass from the Xavier house interrupted the moment. Through the window, they could see Linda in full meltdown, her carefully maintained image shattering like the vase she had thrown. Peter stood calmly, his military training evident in his composed stance as he blocked her path toward Karen's house. She's not well, Jay explained, his voice tight with emotion. Not since Dad left, but that doesn't excuse what she did to Melissa or any of us. Peter pulled out his phone, showing a series of text messages. I've been documenting everything, the threats, the manipulation, the way she played us against each other. I knew someday someone would need to know the truth. As the morning progressed, Karen's home became a sanctuary of healing. The three siblings, finally free from their mother's manipulation, began the delicate process of reconnecting. In Karen's living room, Beth orchestrated a gentle structure to help them transition. "I've spoken with my sister Beth," Peter explained, his voice steady and reassuring, "and the judge has granted an emergency custody order. All three of you will stay here with Karen for the next 72 hours while we secure and document everything at home." Beth added softly, "I have arranged for a trauma counselor to be with you, and will help you process everything." Jay nodded, his protector instincts still evident as he sat slightly forward between his siblings and the window. "What about Mom's hearing tomorrow?" one asked. Beth interjected gently. "The evidence we've gathered, combined with her behavior today, warranted immediate intervention. She'll be held for a psychological evaluation." Kyle, whose voice trembled with the weight of years of forced secrecy, asked, "Will they make us testify? Make us tell everyone what happened?" Peter's voice was firm. "No. The documentation speaks for itself. Your only job now is to heal together." Melissa, who had been arranging a family photo she'd recovered from the kitchen, looked up. "What about school?" "Everyone will know by Monday." Karen, who had been discreetly organizing sleeping arrangements, joined the conversation. "I've already spoken with Principal Matthews. We're implementing an immediate support system, private counseling for each of you, and your teachers have been briefed to provide academic flexibility as you adjust." As night approached, the practical aspects of their new reality began to settle in. Beth helped establish a routine, understanding that structure would be crucial in the coming days. The siblings would share Karen's converted basement, a comfortable living space with 3 proper beds, a stark contrast to Melissa's months on the cold kitchen floor. "Remember," Beth addressed them gently, "healing isn't linear. You'll have good days and hard days, but you have each other now, and a support system that won't fail you." Peter watched his children as they began the delicate process of reclaiming their sense of security. Jay finally allowed his guard to drop slightly as he accepted a cup of hot chocolate from Karen. Kyle retrieved his textbooks, finding comfort in the familiar routine of studying. And Melissa, resilient as ever, fell asleep on the couch, clutching her mother's locket in one hand and her brother's childhood photo in the other. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: legal proceedings, therapy sessions, and the long process of rebuilding trust. But tonight, in the warm safety of Karen's home, the foundations of healing had begun to take root. In the stark fluorescent light of Millbrook Psychiatric Center's consultation room, 3 days after Linda's arrest, Dr. Elena Matthews, the facility's chief psychiatrist, sat across from Peter Xavier. Her expression was grave as she reviewed the extensive documentation. "Captain Xavier, what we're dealing with here is far more complex than initial reports suggested," she began. "Linda's psychological evaluation has revealed a severe underlying condition that went untreated for years. The abandonment by her first husband triggered a cascading pattern of paranoid behavior and control mechanisms." Peter leaned forward, his military posture unwavering despite his exhaustion. "I need to understand, Doctor, how did none of us see this coming?" Dr. Matthews opened Linda's file, revealing years of carefully concealed mental health records. Linda was extraordinarily skilled at compartmentalizing her behavior. As a guidance counselor, she knew exactly how to present herself to the world. She used her professional knowledge to manipulate the system, making any concerns about her behavior seem unfounded. She produced a series of journal entries dating back to Peter's deployment. These writings show a progressive breakdown in her ability to distinguish reality from her paranoid fantasies. The isolation of Melissa wasn't just about punishment, it was about control. In Linda's distorted worldview, Melissa represented everything she feared: abandonment, replacement, the loss of her own children's love. A separate folder contained emails between Linda and her ex-husband, revealing another layer of manipulation as she told the boys that their father wanted nothing to do with them, while blocking his attempts to contact them. "Look at this," Karen said softly, holding up a recent bank statement that showed large withdrawals every month sent to an address in Florida. She cross-referenced it with property records on her laptop. It's a beachfront condo purchased 3 months ago. Linda's been planning this for a while, systematically moving money and establishing a new life without Melissa. Peter's military training had taught him to analyze threats, yet nothing had prepared him for this level of calculated domestic warfare. Linda hadn't just isolated Melissa. She had been systematically erasing all traces of Sarah and Peter from their lives, constructing a narrative of abandonment to justify her actions. As the conversation unfolded, an urgent knock at the door interrupted them. Linda's attorney, Richard Thompson, entered accompanied by Beth, who had been appointed as the family's advocate. The contrast between Richard's polished, corporate demeanor and Beth's compassionate professionalism was striking. "We've reviewed the preliminary findings," Richard announced in a clipped tone. "Given the circumstances, we're prepared to discuss terms for a monitored rehabilitation program and supervised visitation rights." Peter's voice was firm and controlled. "Absolutely not. The damage you've inflicted on these children goes beyond physical isolation. They have been stripped of their sense of security and trust." Jay still positions himself between every door and his siblings. Kyle can't sleep without checking the locks multiple times. And Melissa, she hides her food and napkins as if to hide the pain. Dr. Matthews interjected, "The children's current psychological assessments show significant trauma responses, but they have demonstrated remarkable resilience, particularly in their bonds with each other. These bonds must be protected and nurtured during their recovery." The conversation was interrupted by urgent footsteps in the hallway. A nurse appeared at the door, her expression concerned. "Mrs. Xavier is demanding to see her sons. She's become extremely agitated. Security has been called, but she's threatening self-harm if we don't comply." The room tensed as Linda's voice echoed down the corridor, a haunting mixture of demands and pleading that sent chills through everyone present. "They're my boys. You can't keep them from me. I know what's best for them. I'm their mother." In the sterile corridor of Millbrook Psychiatric Center, Linda's voice grew more frantic. "Down here, please, let me see them." Clutching a framed family photo that she'd been allowed to keep in her room, she shouted, "I won't let you steal them from me." Dr. Matthews approached carefully, her calm authority in sharp contrast to Linda's hysteria. "Linda, let's discuss this in your room. Your sons are safe and well cared for." Linda's laugh held a sharp edge. "You don't understand," she cried. "Peter's poisoning them against me, just like Sarah did, turning my own children into her protectors." In the consultation room doorway, Peter watched as his maternal ex-partner's carefully maintained facade began to crumble. Beth stood beside him, documenting every word for the ongoing legal proceedings. "I did what any mother would do," Linda continued between rage and pleading. "I had to separate them before she took them away from me. The letters, the phone calls, the secret meetings, they were all plotting against me, just like before, just like their father." Dr. Matthews maintained her professional composure, though her expression betrayed growing concern. "Linda, you stopped taking your medication 8 months ago. These paranoid thoughts aren't reality. Your sons weren't being turned against you. They were trying to protect their sister from abuse." Linda's voice rose sharply. "I gave them everything. A roof overhead, food, education. I even left them sandwiches when we were away. But she turned our family against me, just like her own mother, taking everything I love." As security moved slowly into position, Linda's agitation grew, and in her increasing distress, she revealed more than anyone had uncovered. "I found Sarah's letters," she confessed in a frenzied stream, "the one she wrote before she died. Letters from Melissa's birthdays, graduation, wedding day, perfect words from a perfect mother. I couldn't let her win, couldn't let her keep controlling my family from beyond the grave. So I burned them, every last one, just like I burned Peter's letters, just like I was going to burn everything that connected them." Peter's sharp intake of breath echoed in the sudden silence. The letters his late wife had written, precious words he had penned to preserve her memory for Melissa, had been destroyed in Linda's campaign to erase Sarah's memory from their lives. Dr. Matthews observed, "Linda, this isn't about Sarah or Melissa. It's about your unresolved trauma from your first marriage. You're projecting those fears onto your current family, creating enemies where there are none. Linda's composure crumbled entirely as Dr. Matthews' words penetrated her carefully constructed defenses. She sank to her knees, still clutching the family photograph, her once immaculate facade finally shattering. "I had a dream last week," she whispered in an eerily calm tone. "I saw my first husband with Sarah. They were laughing, planning to take all my children away. Sarah was holding Melissa's hand, but Jay and Kyle were there too. They were calling her mom. I couldn't let that happen." Peter stepped forward, unable to remain silent any longer. "No one is stealing them, Linda. Sarah's memory isn't a threat to you. She was a mother who loved her daughter enough to write letters for every milestone, knowing she'd miss you. You didn't destroy papers. You destroyed Melissa's connection to her mother." Beth interjected gently. "The only one creating division here is you, Linda." Linda's grip on the photograph loosened, the frame clattering to the floor and cracking, its glass spreading fractures across the smiling faces of their once united family. "I didn't mean to," she whispered as the fight left her body. "I just couldn't bear to lose them again. Not like before, not like him." Dr. Matthews helped Linda to her feet, signaling for a nurse to bring medication. "This is the first step, Linda, acknowledging your fears and understanding their source. It's the beginning of real healing, not just for you, but for everyone you've hurt." As Linda was led away, Peter retrieved the cracked photograph from the floor. Through the shards of broken glass, he could see the truth they had all missed. The signs of Linda's deterioration had been hidden behind perfect smiles and carefully staged happiness in the quiet solitude of Karen's living room. That evening, Peter Xavier faced the difficult task of sharing the day's revelations with his children. The evening sun cast long shadows through the windows as Beth and Karen sat nearby, providing silent support for what would become one of the most challenging conversations of their lives. "Your mother's letters," Peter began steadily despite the overwhelming emotion. "The ones Mom wrote before she passed. Melissa, Linda found them," and he paused, searching for the right words to convey such a profound loss. Melissa, who had been absently stroking her mother's locket, looked up sharply. "The birthday letters, the ones you said Mom wrote for me, they're gone, aren't they?" Peter nodded, the weight of the loss evident in his bearing. "Yes, sweetheart, Linda burned them. She saw them as a threat to her relationship with all of you, as if your mother's presence, even through those letters, was somehow stealing her." Jay reacted immediately, standing abruptly with controlled anger. "Those letters weren't hers to destroy. They weren't about you at all." His hands clenched into fists as years of suppressed rage found expression. Kyle, the quiet observer by the window, recalled, "I remember finding one in Mom's desk drawer. It said for Melissa's 16th birthday in really pretty handwriting. And when I asked about it, Mom said it was just old paperwork and locked the drawer." Beth leaned forward, her professional demeanor softening with compassion. What Linda did was a profound violation. Not only did she destroy papers, but she tried to erase a mother's final gifts to her daughter. Yet she couldn't erase the love those letters represented. Melissa, gathering the family photo album she had rescued from the kitchen with trembling hands, pulled out a worn photograph of Sarah taken just weeks before her death. "I used to imagine what those letters said," she confessed softly. "On bad nights in the kitchen, I'd make up words I thought Mom might have written. It helped me feel less alone." Peter's revelation struck him like a physical blow. While he had been deployed, believing his daughter was safe and cared for, she had been lying on a kitchen floor, creating imaginary letters from her dead mother for comfort. The magnitude of Linda's actions, her physical isolation, and the emotional devastation she had inflicted became devastatingly clear. There was more Peter needed to share, so he reached for a folder Beth had brought from the psychiatric facility. Linda's evaluation revealed severe, untreated trauma and paranoid delusions. "The woman who did these things," Peter said slowly, "she isn't entirely the same person who first brought our families together in the serene confines of our home." In Dr. Matthews' office at Millbrook Psychiatric Center, The morning light filtered through Venetian blinds as she presented Linda's comprehensive psychological evaluation. The thick manila folder on her desk contained decades of medical history that painted a disturbing picture of untreated trauma and escalating mental illness. Captain Xavier, Dr. Matthews began with measured gravity. Linda's condition is the result of severe childhood abandonment issues, exacerbated by her first husband's departure. Her medical records reveal a pattern of increasingly paranoid behavior that began long before your marriage. Your deployment seems to have triggered a catastrophic regression in her mental state. Beth added context from her own notes. The timing is crucial here. Linda stopped taking her medication almost exactly when you were deployed. Peter, ever the precise strategist, observed the dates on the psychological evaluations with his military-trained eye. My deployment triggered what Dr. Matthews calls a catastrophic regression. Linda's childhood abandonment trauma resurfaced, combining with her fears about her first marriage. Dr. Matthews confirmed. Yes, and in her compromised mental state, she began seeing parallels between her past and present that simply didn't exist. Dr. Matthews then opened a leather-bound journal, Linda's private writings from the months leading up to the crisis. Her delusions had become increasingly specific. Listen to this entry from April, she read softly. Today I saw Sarah in all of them. The way Jay protects Melissa, just like Sarah used to protect her younger sister. The way Kyle reads with her, sharing books like Sarah did with her students. They're becoming her children, not mine. I have to save them before it's too late. Peter felt the force of the revelation. The very bonds between the siblings, which he had seen as a sign of healing, had been perceived by Linda as evidence of her worst fears coming true. Dr. Matthews explained further. The most concerning aspect is Linda's ability to maintain her professional facade while her internal reality crumbles. As a guidance counselor, she used her understanding of the system to create a paper trail justifying her actions. Every report, every documented incident, was building toward her ultimate goal, separating the children from you in order to protect them from an influence that exists only in her mind. The weight of understanding settled over the room as Linda's actions, though undeniably harmful, were revealed to have emerged from a place of profound mental illness rather than deliberate malice. Her attempt to destroy one family was driven by her desperate, delusional attempt to save another, one that existed only in her fractured perception of reality. In the late afternoon sunlight of Millbrook Psychiatric Center's consultation room, Dr. Matthews presented her final assessment and treatment recommendations. The gravity of the situation was evident in the careful arrangement of documents, each representing a different aspect of the complex path forward. Linda's treatment will require long-term, specialized care, she explained, addressing Peter and Beth. We're recommending a minimum 6-month residential program at our trauma recovery unit, followed by intensive outpatient therapy. The goal isn't just to stabilize her condition, but to address the deep-rooted trauma that led to this crisis. Peter studied the treatment plan with the same methodical precision that had served him in the military. And the children, how we help them process this understanding of their mother's illness while still acknowledging the real harm they've suffered, he asked softly. Beth opened her therapeutic assessment folder, revealing detailed notes on each child's current emotional state. We're proposing a dual approach. Individual therapy sessions focused on their specific experiences and trauma, combined with carefully structured family therapy sessions. The key is to help them understand that acknowledging Linda's illness doesn't invalidate their pain or their right to feel hurt by her actions. Dr. Matthews nodded in agreement. Jay, in particular, shows signs of parentification, taking on adult responsibilities to protect his siblings. While admirable, he needs support in reclaiming his role as a teenager. Kyle's academic perfectionism appears to be a coping mechanism, and Melissa will require specialized trauma-informed therapy. The discussion then turned to legal guardianship and ongoing care. The court has granted you full custody of all 3 children, Beth confirmed, presenting the official documentation. However, we recommend maintaining some form of controlled contact with Linda as her treatment progresses, always supervised and guided by therapeutic professionals. Peter's expression reflected the weight of responsibility he now carried. How do we move forward as a family? How do we rebuild trust while honoring both the pain we've experienced and the potential for healing? Dr. Matthews responded thoughtfully. The fact that the siblings have maintained their bonds, despite everything, shows remarkable resilience. We will build on that foundation, helping them understand that their mother's illness does not diminish the reality of their experiences or the strength they found in each other. As the meeting concluded, the path forward became clearer, if not easier, then more defined. The family would face a long journey of healing, understanding, and reconstruction, guided by professionals who comprehended both the complexity of trauma and the possibility of recovery. 6 months after the events at Millbrook Psychiatric Center, the Xavier residence had undergone a transformation that went far beyond its physical appearance. The autumn morning light streamed through newly installed windows, illuminating a home that had become a testament to healing and resilience. In the renovated kitchen, now warm and welcoming, Peter Xavier stood preparing breakfast with Melissa. The old mattress and makeshift bedroom were long gone, replaced by a state-of-the-art cooking island where father and daughter shared their morning routine. Their easy conversation and synchronized movements spoke of months spent rebuilding their relationship through simple, everyday moments. Your perspective on family resilience is particularly compelling, Peter mentioned, carefully flipping a pancake as Melissa arranged fresh fruit on 3 plates. Her recent academic achievements had become a source of pride for the entire family, marking her triumphant return to the top of her class. From upstairs came the familiar sound of classical music as Kyle practiced his morning piano routine, a recent addition to their home that had become a symbol of his emotional recovery. What had once been a secret comfort offered through the isolation of the kitchen walls was now an open expression of familial support and artistic passion. Jay entered the kitchen in his athletic gear after an early morning run at 18. Gradually learning to release his self-imposed role as family protector in healthier ways. "Coach says I have a good shot at that college sports scholarship," he announced, accepting a glass of orange juice from his sister. This ordinary morning routine, on its surface, represented months of careful therapeutic work. Each family member had found their own path toward healing while maintaining the bonds that had sustained them through their darkest times. The kitchen, once a place of isolation and fear, had now become the heart of their reconstructed family life. Karen, who had transitioned from emergency guardian to trusted family friend, appeared at the back door with her usual warm smile, a reminder that her presence remained an integral part of their support system. Even after the immediate crisis had passed, her home continued to be a safe haven. "The garden club meeting is this afternoon," she reminded them casually, accepting a cup of coffee from Peter. Beth suggested it would be good for Melissa to share her herb gardening project, and the mention of Beth was now as casual as any conversation. The trauma counselor's role had evolved from crisis intervention to supportive guidance. Her steady presence had helped the family navigate the complex emotions surrounding Linda's treatment and their own healing process. 3 weeks before Christmas, Peter Xavier sat in Dr. Matthews' office at Millbrook Psychiatric Center for their monthly family progress review. The winter sun cast a gentle glow through frosted windows, highlighting the positive changes documented in the reports. "The children's progress has been remarkable," Dr. Matthews noted as she reviewed her latest assessments. Jay had successfully transitioned to a more age-appropriate role within the family, excelling in both academics and athletics. His college applications reflected a young man who had found healthy ways to channel his protective instincts into future career aspirations, perhaps even in child advocacy law, as Peter had long envisioned. Kyle's piano performances had become a form of emotional expression that benefited not only him, but also the patients at the children's ward, where he performed weekly recitals. Meanwhile, Melissa's involvement in her school's peer support program had transformed her personal pain into a strength, enabling her to help other students navigate family challenges. Peter shared recent photographs of their renovated home, including the new family room where weekly therapy sessions now took place. a space designed with input from all three children to promote both individual healing and family bonding. When Peter inquired about Linda's progress, Dr. Matthews explained that her residential program was showing promise. Her medication management has stabilized her condition, and she's begun to process the reality of her actions without the filter of paranoid delusions. Her recent supervised letter to the children, while not seeking forgiveness, is a step toward acknowledging the pain and her responsibility for it. Our next supervised family session, scheduled for next month, will be crucial in establishing healthy boundaries and carefully manage future interactions. As Peter prepared to leave, Dr. Matthews shared one final observation that filled him with cautious hope. What's most encouraging is how your family has redefined itself. The bonds between the siblings, forged in adversity, have grown stronger through healing. They have learned that family isn't just about blood or legal ties. It's about choosing to support and protect one another even in the hardest circumstances. On Christmas Eve, 1 year after Peter's unexpected return, the Xavier home radiated warmth and renewal. The living room, adorned with thoughtfully chosen decorations, reflected the family's journey from trauma to healing. Each ornament on the tree held special significance, symbolizing their collective resilience. Karen and Beth, now cherished as extended family members rather than mere professional supports, joined the celebration. Kyle sat at the piano, his fingers dancing across the keys in a melody that spoke of hope rather than hiding, while Jay, home from his college interviews, shared animated stories about his plans to advocate for families in crisis. Melissa, her mother's locket now containing photos of all three siblings, arranged holiday cookies on a plate she had crafted in her therapy-recommended art class. Peter observed his children with quiet pride, recognizing that the past year had taught them that healing is not a destination, but a continuing journey. Although the supervised visit with Linda the previous week had been challenging yet constructive, under Beth's guidance, they had maintained appropriate boundaries while acknowledging Linda's progress in her treatment program. Her genuine remorse and commitment to recovery had opened the possibility of carefully managed future interactions. After dinner, as the night deepened and snow began to fall softly outside, a new tradition was born. Melissa announced, "I have something to share." Retrieving a carefully wrapped package from under the tree, she revealed a leather-bound journal. "It isn't a reminder of past pain," she explained steadily, "but a new creation. I've been writing letters, not to replace the ones we lost, but to create new memories. Letters about our family, about how we found strength in each other." Jay and Kyle moved closer as Melissa opened the journal to reveal pages filled with photographs, notes, and mementos from their journey. "It's for all of us," she continued, "a reminder that family isn't defined by what we've lost, but by what we choose to build together." The evening concluded with each family member sharing a hope for the future. Kyle spoke of his upcoming music recital, dedicating an original composition to their journey. Jay described his vision of creating legal protections for blended families in crisis, and Melissa expressed her commitment to helping other young people find their voice through writing and peer support. At midnight, as Peter Xavier looked around at his transformed family, a family that had once been shattered by betrayal and abuse, but now stood united in their commitment to healing, he reflected on the profound lessons they had learned about strength, resilience, and the power of unconditional love. The military captain who had once discovered his daughter sleeping on a cold kitchen floor had learned that even in the depths of tragedy, there is hope. Their story, marked by both heartbreak and triumph, had become a testament to the enduring spirit of family, not as a perfect institution, but as a continuous journey of growth, understanding, and healing. In the soft piano notes of Kyle's playing, the warm laughter of siblings sharing their stories, and the supportive presence of their extended family of choice, the Xavier household stood as a sanctuary of hope, understanding, and unwavering love. For in the depths of every family's journey lies a profound truth. It is never too late to heal old wounds, rebuild broken bridges, and create new traditions that honor both our past and our future. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories like this one. Share this video with your friends and family, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for our next video, and check out others you might have missed. See you next time.